Good morning and welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. We are in Acts chapter 15, and I'm going to tell you, this is a long chapter to read. I can probably sum it up pretty good, but there's definitely, if you want to do some reading today, this is a nice long read. What we find is that, excuse me this morning, that there are some individuals who are talking to Paul and Barnabas at this time about the importance of the Gentiles who are being converted over into Christianity, that they also need to follow some of the same rules of Moses, particularly being circumcised. And Paul and Barnabas don't believe that this is necessary. They're like, they've been filled with the Holy Spirit and they have many wonders happen among them. They don't have to carry that same burden. And they even say it's a burden that we as the Jewish people can't hold up. And so what happens then is that they send Paul and Barnabas to Jerusalem, to some of the beginning disciples, the elders, to say, hey, what are we supposed to do here? Because we're in disagreement. And so Paul and Barnabas are like, okay, we'll go talk to them just to make sure that, we're not teaching the wrong thing. And they travel through some of their favorite churches along the way. And then they get there and they have this conversation with the elders, which are actually called Pharisees. And what they decide after conversation is that no, they don't need to be circumcised. But, however, we don't want them to be eating the blood of the animals that have been sacrificed to foreign gods and idols, and there's certain ways of behavior that they need to be living by. But they don't need to be circumcised. And so what they do, so you hear all that going on, and then what happens is the council then writes this letter, and they're going to send a couple of their own representatives to give this church the letter and to be able to speak it to them. And so they tell us what the letter says, and then they send off, I believe it's Silas and Judas go along with Barnabas and Paul to take the letter. And so we find that they go back to Antioch, and everybody is very happy with the letter. They're well satisfied with how it turned out. And we find that Paul and Barnabas decide to stick around for a little while and just enjoy everybody's company. But then they decide that it's time they want to go back by some of the places they've already been. They want to see what's happening. How is God doing work among the people that they have already visited? And it just so happens that they're going to take some people with them. But Barnabas and Paul get into an argument about who they're taking. And it says that their argument became sharp. Their disagreement became sharp. And so they parted company. And so Barnabas went along with Judas, who is also named Mark. And they go off to this island of Cyprus. And then Paul takes Silas, and they start going up, going up north from Jerusalem, or Antioch, and go through Syria and Cilicia. But it's interesting. What I love about this particular chapter, because there's a lot that's happening in here, it goes to show that from the very beginning, teachings are still, you have to figure them out. You can't just be told that's how it is. there needs to be discussion. Is it really, does it have a good intention? Is there not good intention? Is it working anymore? I mean, at the very beginning, they're like, okay, circumcision needs to go out the door. However, we're going to maintain that you don't eat certain kinds of meat. And they have this conversation throughout. Like, it's not stuck in stone. And I think that's the idea that so many people get, is that religious people are stuck in their ways. And don't get me wrong, there is that. But if we look at our faith through the Bible, it's something we're always supposed to be in conversation with. It's something that we're always to be looking at what's working and what's not working. And what we find out too along the way is that our relationships, they work for a while and then they don't work for a while. And it's so sad to say, but sometimes people have to split ways because they just don't agree anymore. But it doesn't mean that God isn't still at work in all that's happening right there. And so we just see this interesting, it might be sad and it might be helpful for us to just realize that we're always going to be doing things new and differently, but the only way to do it is by being in conversation with our faith and with what God's calling us to. And we can't always do it the way we used to do it, but what do we need to do so that God's work is being done in and among us? And then just an awareness that our relationships sometimes can only go so far, and then we have to go other ways. I think as a United Methodist pastor, I get that more than anything. Our time together is for so long, and then we go different ways. And so that's where I am today. Actually, I took a long chapter and did it pretty quick, I think, this morning. So thanks for joining me today. Tomorrow, we're going to see Timothy join into the group, and we're going to see what happens next. So thanks for joining me, Pastor Amanda, with Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion. See you tomorrow.